Welcome to On the Right Side of History with Kansans for Life. Come with us as we connect the pro-life movement's past to present, uncover hidden or forgotten history, and its connections to the battle still raging today. Now, here's our host, Danielle Underwood.
Hi, and welcome back to On the Right Side of History with Kansans for Life. I'm Danielle Underwood, your host. Today, Carol Tobias, president of National Right to Life, joins me on the podcast. We will be talking about what's happening at the federal level that impacts the pro-life movement as the Trump administration takes full control of the reins. We'll also be giving you a heads up about this year's National Right to Life conference that will be happening right here in Overland Park, Kansas, June 20th through 21st. Welcome, Carol, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Danielle. It's great to be on with you.
Is there anything you would like to tell us, first of all, for I think a lot of our listeners and viewers are very familiar with National Right to Life, but for those who aren't, would you like to just tell us a little bit about what the history and kind of the unique place that NRL fills in the pro-life movement?
I would love to, because I love National Right to Life and the way it is structured. We are an affiliated organization, so there is National Right to Life, but then we have affiliates in each of the states. We've got chapters around the country. So we've got people all over in communities making a difference, trying to promote life and bring more people into the movement. We started back in 1968, so we've been around for a long time. We work at the federal level, work with our affiliates on state legislation. We work with education. We work to elect candidates. We've been a strong voice for unborn children and their mothers, and we're going to continue that for as long as it takes.
Thank you so much for that. Well, I knew exactly who I wanted to talk to, and that's you, about what's happening with this Trump administration. Wow, what a whirlwind of action so far. I mean, I think all of us, everyone in the country is just kind of in awe of what's taking place. So many really wonderful things are happening from a pro-life perspective. So I'm excited to talk about that with you. And, just to kind of jump off into that discussion. So among his first actions after his inauguration, he issued an executive order related to the Mexico City policy, and he ended the Biden administration's policy of using American taxpayer funds to pay for abortion travel. Can you explain the effect that these orders will have both internationally and also at home?
Well, internationally, what I think is so sad is when you look at families in developing countries, women are looking at, they have a baby and they want clean water and food and healthcare and education and a safe environment. Those are the things naturally that all mothers are going to want for their kids. But when it's a poor country, a developing country, those things probably are even more important because they are more scarce. What we were doing under the Biden administration was going into those countries saying, we can give you free abortions, because we were spending millions, probably billions of dollars through international organizations, helping them to promote abortion and perform abortions in other countries. So Donald Trump has said that is going to stop. And it has. So I think that's one of the best things he could have done for our image around the world, was to say, we will help you, but it's not going to be in the way that would be deadly for your villages. When it comes to defense travel, Department of Defense, there is a federal law that says our tax dollars may not be used to pay for abortions for those in the military. Well, Joe Biden thought he could get around it and say, okay, we're not going to pay for the abortions, but we will pay for all of the expenses, so that if you have to travel somewhere to get an abortion, we'll cover that for those in the military. And again, Donald Trump has stopped that. Going back to the actual intent of the law, the wording of the law that says our tax dollars will not be used to pay for abortion. So those were two very important measures, and the fact that Donald Trump came out with them so quickly was just very encouraging. Only we didn't realize at the time that that was just the start of what he was going to do. It's been amazing.
Agreed. It has been amazing. One of the other amazing things that I have just stood in awe of, and I know many people think have been one of his most telling actions so far, were the presidential pardons of the peaceful pro-life activists that were targeted by the Biden-Harris administration, by the DOJ, the Department of Justice. And I'm wondering what you think this means, because to me, the ramifications are they just go on and on, what this really means for the pro-life movement, beyond, of course, righting an injustice to those individuals who were affected directly by the pardons. But I'm wondering what you think about its impact on the movement as a whole.
On the movement as a whole, it was just extremely encouraging that Donald Trump pardoned those who had been put in jail because they disagreed with the Biden administration on abortion. They were outside abortion facilities. They were trying to convince women not to get an abortion, but they ended up in jail. There was more to it than that, but it did not meet the standard that should have given anybody any kind of jail sentence. But what it did, I think, by putting those people in jail, it kind of scared members of the pro-life community. As Vice President J.D. Vance pointed out at a speech in Munich at a security conference, he was challenging those in Europe to allow free speech. And he specifically mentioned cases and we've seen them as well in England and Wales and Scotland, where people are not allowed to stand outside an abortion facility. They are not allowed to pray outside an abortion facility. And in Wales, you are not even allowed to pray within your own home if you are within a certain distance of an abortion facility. So it was kind of getting to be kind of scary to think that we could have that kind of limitation placed on our words, our actions, and even our prayer. So the fact that Donald Trump was willing to pardon the pro-lifers, I think gave us, again, the encouragement that our efforts are not going to be hindered by our government.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I think, knowing that our First Amendment rights are protected, to be able to speak, to be able to stand on a public sidewalk, to know that we can have our beliefs and not have thought police, looking at what we're trying to think or say or do. I think that is very, very important. And I completely agree that it's going to have an impact on people's. I think courage has always been a part of being a member of the pro-life movement, but that it just emboldens us to remind us that we do have those rights as citizens of the United States of America. So I'm glad you brought up J.D. Vance, because he's another. I wanted to specifically speak with you about him. He's spoken on pro-life topics several times since the inauguration. The one that you mentioned in Munich, he spoke at the National March for Life, which was a fantastic speech there. He spoke recently at CPAC, that's just to name a few, and spoke specifically about his faith and his pro-life beliefs. And I'm just wondering, just as a general question, just kind of for fun, what your take is on J.D. Vance's potential future impact as a leader on the national and even international stage.
Well, I was just thinking I was going to start by saying, he'll be a great vice president, but I think he already is.
Yeah.
He's only had a month, but I think he's doing a fantastic job.
Yes.
Vance is a strong defender of life. He is articulate. He's bold. I think he is going to be a great representative for the pro-life movement, for unborn children, and for their moms. He's going to be speaking out for, on behalf of all of us and all of them. By virtue of being vice president, when you look to the future, I would say that probably gives him a head start in the 2028 presidential election. I'm sure that's definitely on his mind. But I will also say that there are a lot of fantastic people, strongly pro-life, bold in their defense of unborn children, wanting to help the moms. that were also going to be interested. So I'm not, certainly not going to pick a horse at this time, because I think we're going to have a lot of great people contending for that title in 2028. But J.D. Vance is certainly going to be among them.
Mm-hmm. And the more strong pro-life voices, the better.
Yes.
Agreed. Yeah, we have some wonderful representatives, and like you said, just so eloquent. The way that they're able to deliver the message to a general audience, I think, is wonderful. Specifically with Vice President Vance mentioning the administration's desire to encourage families to welcome more children. And he talked specifically about financial and other barriers, some things that are making young people today maybe fearful of welcoming children into their family. And that they had some goals related to that. And I'm just wondering, with all the work you do on Capitol Hill and just in the federal realm, what kind of policies do you think could be implemented to achieve those goals that they're talking about?
Well, I was actually on a panel at a conference sponsored by the countries of Hungary and Brazil to talk about family and ways to promote family. And Hungary has some, I thought, really interesting ways of encouraging marriage and children. You get extra vacation days, depending on how many kids you get. You have. You can build up your more vacation days. There's be support for housing, support for getting a bigger car if you need it. Your taxes go down the more kids you have. There were a lot of things that were just kind of like, wow, that's very different. Mm-hmm. I pointed that out to a friend, and he said, yes, but they don't have the military that we have. We're kind of like the police force for the world. And so I did look it up, and yeah, their military is about 3% the size of ours. So that maybe would help to maybe free up some dollars to help the families. But they are really trying very hard to make it affordable and easier for people to have children in Hungary. And I know there have been a lot of things discussed here, like increasing the child tax credit. I would encourage the enhancement of adoption, just the image of adoption. First of all, making it easier to adopt, making it cheaper to adopt, but also making it a very positive outcome for a pregnancy, so that if a woman decides she doesn't want the child, that she would rather let someone else raise that child than to end that child's life. Again, it's going to come down to money. But with everything that we're hearing now with the new Department of Government Efficiency, I'm certainly hoping that there will be more money available for more things. If you can get the fraud and abuse out of the federal government, maybe that will make a difference, and we can do more with more money available to encourage people to have kids.
Mm-hmm. I love those innovative ideas for really making family life very attractive for people, incentivizing that, right? We want to incentivize good things for not only the individuals, but also for the nation as a whole. And we know that we need more babies. And I know Vice President Vance has said that very publicly, as have others said, we need more babies in this country. So those are wonderful ideas. So the other thing that I also remember him mentioning was support for pregnancy resource centers. That's something we've very much prioritized here in the state of Kansas, and we've been working on not only tax credits for donations to those pregnancy centers, also we've worked on directing dollars through the budget to those centers for that very real, those social services they're providing, that the direct care to women. So I think we would love to see more of that as well. And maybe that ties in very well with what you're saying about, finding efficiencies within the government could mean that money gets directed toward efforts that are going to make a big difference for individuals and families. Do you know of any efforts on that front within Congress at this point?
Not at this time, but I fully expect, we've got a lot of amazing pro-life leaders in Congress that will be coming up. And we've got state governors and legislatures that have been doing that kind of work, the tax credits for donations to pregnancy centers, or making grants available to the pregnancy centers. So the states are coming forward, and actually it's coming from red states. And, so supposedly these states that don't care about women because they want to protect unborn children, they're the ones that are coming forward with programs to help moms with an unexpected pregnancy or ones that just need a little more support. But I think we will be seeing some of that in Congress as well.
That's exciting. Yeah, and I think we're unusual in that we have a Democrat governor, and yet through veto overrides, we've been able to achieve some of those same things, which has been so exciting for the people of Kansas. It's something we're working on, renewing those funds again this year and hopefully expanding them as well. But that does tie back into any other congressional updates you'd like to mention before we pivot to talk about the conference. Is there anything else I've heard some about maybe Born Alive? Is there anything related to that or other measures that are being put forward in Congress?
Well, the House has passed the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act so that if a baby does survive the abortion, that boy or girl would have to be given the same kind of medical care and attention and treatment that any baby born prematurely would get. And it has to be reported so that, we know what happened to the baby. But the House passed it. But we were not able to overcome the filibuster in the Senate. And it's appalling to me that every single Democratic senator voted against that bill. It's not that they voted against the bill, they voted against even bringing the bill to the floor for a vote. So they are willing to say that if a baby survives an abortion, no care needs to be given to that child, just put him or her off into another side room or into a closet and wait for the baby to die. Unless the abortionist actually goes through and does something, even more proactive than that. But I think we are also looking at efforts to defund Planned Parenthood. They are the nation's largest abortion provider. They do almost 400,000 abortions every year in this country, more than a third of all abortions that are performed here. But they should not be getting our tax dollars. Many of your listeners may be aware of the New York Times article that just came out within the last week, talking about the botched abortions and the sewage leak that the abortion victims, the clients, had to put up with the smell, the reek of, the stench of the sewer in the abortion facility. Staffers who are not trained and yet they are expected to perform, certain functions, providing wrong medications or the wrong amount of medication. I mean, it was almost an expose coming from the New York Times on Planned Parenthood. It was quite amazing. So there will be an effort to defund Planned Parenthood. Again, we don't know how that's going to go. We certainly would love to see the federal government, if they can't or won't stop the abortion pill, then at least bring it back to the REMS that were in place for 14 years, roughly, before Biden took over, so that these pills are not sent through the mail to unsuspecting women, because these pills are not as safe as the women are being told. We've already seen women die because they took the pill and were not adequately cared for. A lot of what we are seeing right now and what is making such a big difference for the pro-life movement are the executive orders that President Trump has been putting forward. But those are temporary. If a new president comes in and doesn't like them, they can wipe them out. So there will be efforts to put some of those into statutory law, so that they would be on the books regardless of who the president is. But again, that's going to be tough when you've got a filibuster in the Senate. So we're going to just keep working, educating. We need to elect a few more senators and keep our House in the elections next year. A lot of challenges, but there are a lot of great opportunities.
Mm-hmm. You make an excellent point, and I really hadn't thought of it that way. I think we get kind of stirred up by the excitement of those executive orders, but you're right. I mean, in order to have lasting impact, it is going to be important that gets put into statute. So thank you for that reminder, because we need to make sure that, as pro-lifers, we stay engaged in elections and that we are informed about who we're voting for, making sure that we're choosing good pro-life candidates as we go forward. Those are great points. Well, unless you have anything else you want to tell us about the federal level, we will pivot to the conference because we are so excited to be partnering with you. Just first of all, for those of you who are not as familiar, the National Right to Life Conference has featured many impressive speakers over the years. I mean, people including Mother Teresa and Franklin Graham and other just towering figures, just that we all appreciate so much. It's a very important gathering for pro-life leaders across the country. It's a great opportunity to learn. And we are so honored to be hosting you all this year in the heartland of America. So just wanted to ask you if there's anything you wanted to tell us about what we can look forward to this year at the conference. And again, those dates, June 20th through 21st.
I'm thrilled that we're coming back to Overland Park. We were actually there 7 years ago. Kansans for Life does an amazing job in helping to coordinate and organize everything, and we're just really excited to be going back. This is a chance for people from all over the country to come together and not just to kind of renew your spirit and your energy, because you're talking to pro-lifers from around the country and you can share stories and this is what we did and this is what we found worked and this is what didn't work. We will have workshops, seminars, speakers. I'm not going to throw any big names out there. That some have been invited, but until they actually accept, we're not going to try to bring people in under false pretenses that they're going to see this speaker and then it falls through. So I'm not going to put any names out there yet. But it's 2 days of meeting with fellow pro-lifers around the country. And it's an amazing time. You make lifelong friends there. If you've been there before, you get to come back and hopefully see those same people again, and you can talk about how things went over the last year. I'm just really excited that we're going to be there, and I want to thank Kansans for Life for stepping forward and offering to host this. This is, I think it's the 53rd annual convention that we've had. We have been going straight, a conference every year. We only had to cancel once because of COVID, of course. But we're excited to be back. It's going to be bigger and better than ever with new workshops. So if you've been to one of ours before, there will be a lot of new information, and we encourage you to come again.
Excellent. Yeah, we are in a new era since that time. So much has changed in the last 7 years. So, so many new things to cover. Everything from how to use artificial intelligence. I hear that we may be here learning some about that, and there will be a lot of very interesting breakouts. So we highly encourage everyone to be following both National Right to Life social media and also Kansans for Life, because we will be updating you, as Carol mentioned, as they are confirming speakers and letting information out. We're going to be making sure that everyone around us knows what's happening so that you all will know just what to expect and what you can look forward to seeing and doing. And we will be putting out a lot of information too, so that we'll direct you to all of their pages so you can find what you need and be here to, we'll be grabbing volunteers because we're going to need a whole team of people to support. As pro-lifers are coming in from across the country, we're going to need a whole bunch of volunteers to jump in and take part in the day. It's going to be really fun. It'll be a great way to connect with other people here locally as well. Well, thank you, Carol, so much. I really appreciate you joining me today and giving us kind of your insights about what's happening with the Trump administration as they are starting full throttle right out of the gates. And we're excited to see what happens. I know you are too.
Oh, I am. It's going to be, I think, a great 4 years, certainly challenging, but at least now I feel like the wind is at our back. And it's not trying to blow us over. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be a good few years, and we need to take advantage of it. This is when we need to be educating people, reaching out. We can still encourage women not to go through with it, and that's going to be our task.
Yep, we want to help as many women as possible to have the support they need to choose life for their babies. Well, thank you so much, Carol, for joining me today.
Thank you, Danielle. It was great to be on.
And thank you to each of you who joined us today. Be sure to like and share this podcast with others. Just a reminder about our upcoming banquets on Tuesday, March 11th in Overland Park and Tuesday, March 25th in Wichita. Tickets are closing soon, so make sure you get yours today. The banquets will feature mother-daughter duo Rachel Campos Duffy and Evita Duffy Alfonso. Rachel is a Fox and Friends weekend host, best-selling author, wife of President Trump's newly appointed U.S. Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, and the mother of 9. Evita is Rachel and Sean's eldest daughter and host of the Bongino Report Early Edition daily podcast. You can find all the information about this event and tickets at kfl.org. Once again, that's kfl.org. Until next time, never forget, the pro-life movement is on the right side of history. Stay strong. The truth will overcome. Thanks, friends. We will see you soon.